setup. We just want to make sure we're in shot here. And of course, I have a wonky system, but that's okay. Here we go. Beautiful. Okay, so obviously, I know we still got a couple minutes. I don't want my head to be cut off, and unfortunately, maybe it's just my hair, which is probably for the better. So something just to talk about while we're waiting for people to jump on. Hopefully we get people on. If not, well, then I'm just talking to myself, which, hey, we have a good time doing that. Oh, we got one person watching. Fantastic. So we did get some Christmas presents, and I just wanted to talk about that very briefly. Some extra cards. It's always good to have some extra bikes on hand. And then I also got some Mavericks, which what I'm thinking about doing with these is I'm thinking about doing some card sculptures, where you cut them out and kind of make a 3D shape with that. That's what I'm thinking about for that. Uh, but yeah, we still have some time here before we get too ready there. Plus, I also got one of these cubes. The quality of these cubes is not fantastic, but I like the cool shapes on them, so they're still fun, you know. But it's always nice to have extra cards, especially bikes. Can't go wrong with that. So let's put these down here. I've got loads of stuff to talk about today. We're going to try to do like 20 minutes and try to get into it. Now, I originally was thinking about actually singing some stuff today, but unfortunately I can't really do that with my voice the way that it is. But we can still talk about some music as far as like how I approach it. And I'm not really trained in any way. I just like music and I like singing. But just something to kind of chat with, and if you guys want to hang out and talk about it, that's great. We've got our coins out here. Cool. And we still have, let's see here, still have a couple minutes before we really need to get started. I know one person jumped on and then they left, but that's okay. It might have been me. Who knows? Am I watching my own live stream? I don't know. So I got a bunch of props here and just kind of go into talking about a couple of things, but we'll give it a little bit longer. If anybody shows up, great. If not, you can always check back later and we'll see how it goes. I also did get a little pen from my daughter. It's actually quite interesting because it actually has fish on it. So I really love that. And to be honest, like this was a gift from my older daughter a couple years ago, and it's part of my accessory kit. So obviously adding this into my everyday carry will be a necessary thing moving forward, just because, my appreciation for my kids and stuff. Magnets. I love magnets. Before we get started here, still got some time. Look at this. So what's really interesting is I have two sets, and these ones are starting to get a little rusted, okay? But these ones are my shell kit. So these ones are not magnetic, but these ones are. Now, this isn't necessarily magic, but there's a lot of applications that you can do with this. Now, just something I wanted to share with you real quick that's really interesting to me is it's something called paramagnetism. So there's actually a couple of different varieties of it. Basically, what it is it just means that when you transfer magnetic energy to another object, briefly, paramagnetism is basically like this. So watch very carefully these coins here as I disconnect the magnet. Okay, look at that. You see that? So you'll notice that the first thing that's interesting is that we're actually creating, this coin is now becoming magnetic. Now we'll add this coin in as well, and now here's the fascinating thing, right? So as you get down the line here, this one is actually barely able, it has a little bit of magnetic, but not enough to actually hold it. I can lift it, but it won't stay. Very interesting. So it only has so much that it can transfer. Now again, if I do this and I take this off, it will actually still be magnetic for a short amount of time. Now, why is this interesting? Well, because you can use this for magic purposes, such as a moving object. If I can get it to work here. I don't know. I practiced beforehand. That one doesn't quite. Maybe it's this one. Oh, there we go. So this, which is my inner piece for my Scotch and soda, I can move it around pretty decently on the table. If you can, yeah, there you go. So you can see that moving around. So you can create a nice illusionary effect with using the magnetic thing, or if you wanted to do more of a science-based show, you could actually include this as just a prop type of thing. Excuse me. So you could actually use the coins. Now you're wondering, why am I jumping right into just talking about the coins? Well, because your coin game is just going to benefit so much more of what you do. And depending on how you present yourself and how you engage with your audience, this might be important. And for me, science and nature and natural things like that, magnets are my absolute favorite principle of almost anything in that connectivity. Look at that. Because what else would be better for, like, say, someone like myself to pass on and inspire others who can then pass on and inspire others as well? And that's very important. But here's a very important thing that I mentioned earlier. If I disengage from that chain, is it all going to fall apart? And that's the question. Do I think that I'm the head of the chain? No. By no means do I feel like I am the source of that. I get my inspiration from others, and we continue to pass it on. So, coins are very important in that way. And I have a magnetic set and a non-magnetic set, which allows me to have such variety as that. Plus, you've got the shells. So we're talking about magic props today. Now to get into the main focus of what we're going to be talking about, talk about magic props. And we're going to get through these pretty quickly because time reasons, and I just don't want to hold you up a whole lot. So we're going to talk about magic props, talk a little bit about music if we have time. So consider this. When you have your coins, okay, you have a variety of things that you can do. One would be standing, one would be sitting. So know what kind of show you're doing. So I'll give you examples. If this is something that you absolutely want to have, like I have a green one over there that's perfect for traveling. This one's just a good tabletop one to have. Is just have yourself a nice little mat here. Okay, this is going to be a lifesaver. Okay, and here's why. So like, say I've got some cards here, and I want to do something like this. Okay, can I do this on a regular table? The answer is yes, for sure. Okay, I could do this on a regular table, albeit not anywhere near this. I couldn't just keep doing that over and over again. Okay, because this mat offers that opportunity to basically catch the cards and to hold them while you're doing a display like that. And keep in mind that we're also talking about the presentation of your setup. And the way that I like to describe it is that what you're doing is you are basically creating a little piece of your universe, right? And a lot of tricks that we've seen, like on big magic shows, would be like the one where the guy has the string and then everything that's on this side changes, and he's got the little boxes, and whatever he puts in the box is what shows up here. So what he's doing is he's establishing the rules of his little piece of the universe, and then he's dictating what happens within that little square. It's a beautiful narrative, and he controls it. So that is something that's really nice, and that's kind of what you're doing here. You're just writing a little story, and you want it to be cohesive, and you want it to be able to transition to something else. Now, one way that I would do that, because we have coins, there's plenty of tricks. You can do 5 coins, you can do 3 coins, you can do 4, 2, 1. I don't know why I jumbled up 3 and 4, but there's a lot of things that you can do. For instance, let's say, and because we've talked about on the channel, we've talked about doing hand washings. Okay, so let's see if I can do it here sitting down like this. So for one, basically, you've got your nice little coin here. Okay, we're going to teach you a little bit of something because this is one of my favorite things to do here. This is called the French drop. Okay, as you can see, that has vanished just like so. Okay, now it was here, but if I pluck it out of the air here, and we have like a nice little thing there. We can kind of almost rub it back into existence, just like so. Okay. Again, angles are important, and that's something else that's really like. So let's give you a quick rundown. So say you're walking around, you're at a restaurant, and you're standing and they're sitting. So you're going to want to know that they're below you. So I already put the cards away, but this is something that I've talked about before. Is if they are like, let's give you an angle. So like if you're looking down at somebody like this, when you spread out the cards, they're actually going to be able to see these from their positioning. Even if you're just like, say, okay, let's take a look here, they can see the bottom card from their angle. Now, if you're sitting and they're standing, obviously they're not going to be able to see that. So these are things that you want to keep in mind as you're transitioning. And yeah, maybe I should just leave these out for more demonstrations. But that's something to keep in mind. Keep in mind your angles. It's actually quite interesting that I would have alluded to this, but like think about like when I took self-defense, we talked about RAP, which was range, angle, and plane. So this is basically what you want to control when you're in a confrontation with somebody. You want to control the range, you want to control the angle, and then you want to control the plane. And basically what that means is how far away from the person you are, and then you also want to control at what like so as far as the angle, like if they're taller than you or shorter than you, you want to go for their base basically to offset them. And then the plane is like if they're on the ground, you still want to control the angle of being above them, have more leverage and things like that. But let's talk about. I really wish I knew his name, but he was, and I'm sure he's. I mean, it could have been Slidini or whoever, but and I do apologize for not having it on the top of my head. But basically, so he did this routine, and everybody's probably familiar with it. You can go ahead and look it up. If I can find it, I'll link it. Is he had a guy up on stage, and he had the paper, and he kept moving the guy backward and forward, and then he threw the paper behind him. So the trick was a gag trick where to everybody in the audience, they knew what was happening, but the spectator was the only one who was a part of the universe, the illusionary space that was being created by the trick. So that was a very perfect representation of how you can control. Like you have to be careful of that too, because keep putting away the cards. Probably really shouldn't do that. I'll just leave them out this time. So basically, when we do something like say, only cut the cards. So if we've got our cards here like this, and we say, don't shuffle them because you'll mix them up. Okay, only cut them. Type of thing if you've got a stack or something like that. So but you don't want to be over suspicious, you want it to be organic, where you're basically saying, okay, we want to lose the card in the center, and how do we do that? We know it's on top, so if we put it here, it's now in the middle. Now let's say your card is the Jack of Spades, and we say, okay, now what we want to do is we want to get your card to the center just like so. Fantastic. But if all you've got to do is just, with the power of imagination, we will now raise your card to the top. Beautiful. So presentation is everything. Communication is everything. Patter is everything. Everything is everything. Okay. Now let's move along real quick here because we are at, what was that, 14 minutes already? So leave this card out just in case we have something else. Okay. So we've got coins. Beautiful. Coins are organic. Coins can be borrowed. Coins can be from all over the world. You can have a unique coin that you're carrying. You can have a prop coin with a shell. You can have Mexican centavos. You can have magnetic coins. You can have shells, all that stuff. So many different varieties that you can have of that. Now, next one up we're going to talk about, let's see, always having a wand. This is an accessory. But before we get to that, here, let's talk about something like this. So you got coins. You also have dollar bills. You can do a lot of stuff with paper money. A lot of stuff going on there. Wands are an accessory, something that you can definitely do a lot of display stuff with. There's lots of nice things that you can do with a wand to basically just kind of have a nice flourish, nice display. Something, let's see, do I have them right here? So basically, you've got this rated here. We're actually going to pass this through the sponge ball. That's going to make it vanish, okay? Vanish it has. And we could even make this vanish too. Terrible. Terrible. That was garbage. But yeah, we can also make this disappear. I know that's pretty lame. It's pretty lame. But it's an accessory type thing. That's all it really is there. But we can also just basically pull the sponge ball right out of there. Sponge ball is another thing, and I haven't been practicing enough with them. And so maybe I should really dedicate in this new year some sponge ball stuff. So sponge balls, big deal. Accessory, a lot of things can be done with this. Like, I don't know if this works too well here, where I want to push the wand through the coin. You know, something like that. Wand is an accessory, but it comes in handy with a lot of different things. So it's definitely something to have there. Now we'll talk about dice. Dice in themselves, you can do a lot of math tricks or a lot of or you can just do a random number generator, 1 to 6, you know, something just fine with that. As a side note, something very important to have on you, pen and paper, because in this can go for pretty much anything that you do, because anytime, like I do D&D and stuff, so I like to write down notes for campaigns or if I have character ideas, so pen and paper pretty much should be on you at all times, no matter what you do, just in case. Let's say you gotta, you're at the house and you're like, oh, we ran out of something. Write it down, so just always have that on you, and that will come in handy. Let's see here. Oh, a nice another accessory here is this right here, and you should be collecting this. This should be in your repertoire, your overall everything that you do. This is what you should have the most of. And what that is you should have DVDs and books. Now, I just have these two little ones here, but the bigger ones are behind me up on top of the piano. You should have so much source material to pull from that you basically can just pull from multiple different pages or text or whatever it is. You can go on YouTube and learn some stuff now and then, but you should really root yourself into the original source material so that you can really basically make it your own type of mentality with anything that you do. So this is the Omni Deck. This is a very beautiful prop that you can do with here. One of the things I like to do is like my jack-o'-lantern type of thing, where either it's a jack-o'-lantern or it's a see-through. Like one of my basically my pattern would be is that obviously I've got this here like this, and I've got it hidden or however I'm doing it, and then I basically have a card selected at random. There you go. Go ahead and take a look at that card. Go ahead and just kind of, commit it to memory. Okay, great. Now, okay, now I know this trick is, it's actually quite see-through. I know it's actually quite see-through, but, so there's that. Okay, so that's an ace of spades, so great. So that's a great Omni Deck is something that's really nice. It's like a big punctuating thing that you can really bring to the table. It could be your closer. It's powerful. It's good. And it's a good way to get the deck out of the way, because if you want to transition, you can make the deck disappear, and then that way you can be like, okay, well, let's go ahead and look at something else. Okay, let's see what else we got here, because we got more props. This right here is more of a novelty type of prop, but just talking about it in the sense that if you want to add more of a theatrical type of display. But it doesn't work by itself, because you do need to have, it was designed for a smaller deck. Let's see here. No, it's not in there. It's somewhere. But anyway, yeah, so basically what this does is it has a flap to it, and then you can hide the card underneath it, and then you have a beautiful, nice little hidden thing. Obviously, you have to be very careful with it, and so this is a way to basically introduce, this is a great way to introduce a deck, is saying, okay, mysticism. here you have this. I don't even know where the decks are. They're probably over there. But these are more of like the novelty from the toy sets. But I like it because if you wanted to, you could introduce a deck like this where you close it up, you snap your fingers, or you say, hey, we're going to now will it into being, and then it would be inside there, obviously. So that's a great way to utilize that deck and to have a whole presentation set up with that deck, which is fun. We got our passport. Nothing fancy there. Oh, rings. Rings are great. And thumb tips are great. So these are going to be like main staple items that you can really, really just excel at any point in time. You can really make that work for you. So rings, and they're magnetic, so be careful. Thumb tips are really nice. We've even seen, and I know I'm moving through these pretty quickly, and some of these I haven't really dug into a whole lot, and I think that's my bad, but I really need to get back on track with expanding my repertoire. Thumb tips, famously, like the guy that was at the gas station with the sugar, or salt, one of the two, he basically made it appear outside when it was inside and all that of the car. Wonderful presentation. This guy's perfect, so something to keep in mind. We've also got a nice pass-through effect, because I think pass-through effects, I don't have my rope over here for some reason, but I do have my little string here. So rope is going to be a benefit to you as well, because there's a lot of great stuff, and I do want to teach you one. Another ring there. After I show you this. So this is more of a theatrical, if that's the right word for it. A pass-through effect. It's something that's really nice. That it could be something that could be used to create a souvenir for somebody to hand out, like saying, "Hey, look, I made something impossible happen." So that's definitely some way to actually punctuate, if that's the right word for it. Something that you can hand that out after it's done, and it has the hole in it, and they're like, "How'd you do that?" Great. So now we have the rope here, and I really love showing this off because it's one of my favorites. So if you're good at tying knots like I am, then we can basically make such a sturdy and secure knot that there is no possible way that basically whatever you're tying is just going to stay. Anyway, so we've got some. So that's something to keep in mind here, is that rope. Like, I love the idea of that because it's a false knot. And so, like I said, I do want to show you, and you can kind of watch that real quick here, but I'll just do it real slow again. So you're basically going to go like you're going to tie a regular knot. And what I like to do is I like to hold on to it to give them the display like this. Now, keep in mind that when you do the second one, you want to make sure it's the opposite of the first one. So if the first one is over, then the next one's got to be under. And I hold on to it. So you really see this like nice little figure eight. Then you're going to pass one strand in here, and the same strand you're going to wrap around to the second loop. And you really want to have this like jumbled up mess here. And I like to play it off like I just made up that pattern there, was like, this is the securest knot that you'll ever see. As you see it come together here, you can actually see that it's got two ends to it. So it's really going to pull together quite nicely. And anyway, so just pretend like that didn't happen. But it's funny, and obviously it was intended. So if you can control the narrative, and you can protect yourself in that stance, that like, you know, you could be confident with your magic and make yourself look bad, but you know that you're ahead of them on one thing or another. So rope magic, absolutely fantastic, because once again, very organic. You can find a lot of material out in the world that you could do that with without having to carry rope with you wherever you go. Beautiful. Okay. Now we've got this. So this is a nice accessory to have, the insurance policy. There's actually at least, excuse me, there's a nice little card out now that has this right on it, a business card type thing. So that's beautiful. So this is something that's really nice to have on you, and that can kind of accelerate your game a little bit, and you can do it in a couple of different ways. Basically, the way that I like to use this in the sense that you can tie it in with previous tricks. So if you had multiple spectators and you had them pick certain cards, this is a reveal that gives you 3 different cards basically, and then the last one is the actual card for the spectator. Well, the other two reveals could have been previous spectators, and you'd be like, "Wait a minute, that was your card from like 10 minutes ago. Oh, and this card, that was your card, wasn't it?" And then maybe they like still had their card, and you're like, "Well, what do you have now?" And then maybe it's the third card, and you're like, "You know what? I actually kind of knew that was going to be your card because here it is," and they have that card. Or however you could play with it a couple of different ways and do a double reveal or whatever. So something to really spruce that up. Now let's get into the big one here because uh, this is for the big tricks. Uh, it's one of my funnier lines, and I laugh at my own jokes because why not? So basically, what I am looking at getting is a jumbo deck, which is I thought this was a jumbo deck, but a jumbo deck is actually kind of like this. So like when you're holding it, it's like bigger than your head. That's crazy, but I think that's really neat, and it's something I'd really like to get my hands on. But I recommend having a big deck like this, and I do want to get a mini one. Not as many people have these. I'm not sure what I'm going with that, but yeah. So like I do want to get a smaller deck, and I think that'll be a mini deck to do a lot of stuff with, and then a big deck to do other stuff with. Okay, so now let's go ahead and we're gonna go into our final phase, talking about our magic props and things like that. Oh, don't forget cups and balls. I didn't actually get them down, but cups and balls is really something that you could do really stationary, and then you can really make it work. Now, something beautiful about cups and balls is you, if you do it correctly, it doesn't matter how you do it, if that makes sense. There's so many different ways to do it. Penn and Teller has done it with clear cups. Brilliant, and you still kind of get lost in it because it's all about misdirection. So that's one thing. But the other thing is super organic. You can do it at the table with almost anything. All you need is cups and some type of crinkled up paper. It doesn't matter. So cups and balls is something that's fantastically organic and might not be something like cards are hard to introduce. And I love working with cards, but unless you're performing specifically to the card crowd, cups and balls is going to win over the crowd any day of the week because you can really create the scene for the cups and balls organically. So keep that in mind. Cups and balls is absolutely brilliant. Cards, though, let's talk about different types of cards. So always have extra bikes because bikes are easy to get, and this is one thing that I advocate for. Is it's great to have a deck, and I don't know if I have any over here, like these. So I have one of the carvers. Now I could have bought multiple carvers, and that would have been great, but I only had one carver, and so I want to protect this deck more than I want to protect the bicycles because it's all about ease of access. Sorry. So I'm going to wrap this up pretty quick here. So, carvers. I only got one of these, but I can buy 10 of these at my local store. So obviously that's going to be 1 point to the bicycles because you have such easy access to them. So keep in mind that almost makes them like a magic prop because you can easily get more of them with very little issue. Now let's talk about a prop deck or a trick deck or whatever you want to call them. So we got tally hose, which is good to have extras of there. What do I do with it? Oh, they're over here. Okay. So this is a perfect setup. This is a perfectly legitimate card setup right here. You can have both of these in your pocket, and you can very easily just boom. Which actually these aren't the right ones. Yay. Okay. Basically my point there is this. So I think I do have another one over there for this one. But my point is perfectly legitimate because these are two different ones. These are a fan back and these are circle backs. But the point is, if you're carrying two of the same color, one being a trick deck and the other one being a regular deck, you can easily do a deck switch, and it's really hard to tell the difference because they're virtually the same deck. They just have a gimmick to them. So that is a perfectly legitimate setup that you can really just have with you pretty much anywhere you go and just basically be set up with your cards. There you go. Done. You can also have other type of gimmick or trick decks, or this is something that I recommend that you bring in because a lot of people love to do stuff with the aces, maybe the court cards. So go ahead and pick up yourself a couple of pinochle decks because, as I pointed out before, if you're not aware of this, the pinochle deck comes with a blank card. Absolutely fantastic. Actually comes with 2 of them. So now, not only do you have blank cards, but you also have all the court cards. So this is actually, like, you could pretty much use this for a euchre deck, which is great. But you basically have, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, yeah, you have two of each suits, ace through nines. You have 2 of each of those. So this is going to be perfect for your arsenal if you like to do court-based tricks, or even if you don't like doing court-based tricks, like specifically court-based. But if you like to do the aces, if you want to have double aces, if you want to have multiple aces, the Pinochle deck is the way to go. Plus, you get those bonus blank cards, which is really going to come in handy for you if you need some extra blank cards. So even though it's not really a gimmick deck or for Magic or anything like this is just a standard deck. This is going to accelerate your Magic game exponentially because of the resources that it provides in that deck. So a lot of stuff happening here, talking about a lot of prop stuff, talking about a lot of Magic stuff. I didn't even mention rings. Like I wear the rings. This is my Magic ring. Rings to coins, coins to rings. Basically the same thing but reversed. So there is so much stuff to choose from, and as you're transitioning from one thing to the other, such as like my phone. My phone has a phone app that allows me to produce something from my phone. So if I say, hey, and I can't do it because the phone, I'm using it obviously, but what I like to do is I like to say, hey, look, in today's world, you need to have a solid VPN or you need to have cyber security, right? So I keep all my money on my phone. Digital currency is the way to go. And whenever I need it, I just take it right off my phone. So that's, to me, it's just a brilliant way to bring into life a prop that you might need. And in that case, it's coins. But the app that I use actually allows me to create an image and to basically create whatever it is that I want to produce. So I just basically go into it having that prepped and prepared, and then I can make it show up, and then I can actually make it vanish back onto the phone when I'm done, and then put my phone away, or however what I want to transition. So that's that. I mean, that's Magic Theory prop work. So keep your props in mind. There are so many different options to choose from. If you're just sticking with cards, that's great. But when we do an ending note here, we want to talk about, because we are at half an hour, which is way longer than we want to go, but there's a lot of stuff, and this isn't all of it. I mean, there's so much more to choose from. But here's the thing. Are you putting on a 20-30 minute show, or are you just doing 5-minute sets? Because any one of these props you can do 5 minutes with easy. If you're practicing your pattern, you're practicing your tricks, you can easily space it out and do anything in 5 minutes. Even 10 minutes is not very hard at all. So you have to really decide what it is you want to bring. Do you want a theatrical, I don't keep messing up the word. Do you want to have that type of approach to it? You can do sponge balls all day. You know, you can do rings, rope, cards. You know, obviously we know cards can go all day, coins can go all day. So you've got so much material that you can pull from. What are you going to do with it? Are you going to do all of it? Do you want to tie them together in some way? You know, you can do coins, you know, make coins show up. Anything you want to do. We got Sharpies. Keep in mind that's a good accessory as well. So all of that considered, we have our Magic props, and what are you going to use, right? So my recommendation is, from what my strong suits are right now, and this is what I would carry, is I would carry the insurance policy. I wouldn't use it every time, but I would try to incorporate it in different ways at different times. So I'd like to have that on me. I carry the magnets with me pretty much all the time, just because I love magnets. Omni Deck, definitely something to keep on you. Actually, so what I would probably do is I would switch these out. So one time I would, you know, break it with the Omni Deck, or end it. You know, that would be my ending. And then the other time I would do a reveal, basically, with that. Thumb tips is a great transitioner. I'm not sure where I think it's actually in there. Yeah, it's actually in here. The handkerchief, the silk. So thumb tips, I would recommend just getting perfection. Like, don't even take it to market until you're 100% with that, because it'll sing for you. So thumb tips is definitely something that should be an everyday carry, just to really bump up that game. I'm not as confident with the rings, so I probably wouldn't do much with that as of yet. But I hope to get better with them. I did learn a couple of things, but they're not ready yet. Rope, yeah, I would just play around with rope. I think the rope's going to do a lot for you. The cut and restored rope, the knots. There's a lot that you can do with that. Sponge balls is, I love sponge ball material, but let's be for real. Is you can take the same material that you would do with sponge balls is the same material that you'd probably do with coins in a natural setting. So obviously, if you've got yourself a sponge ball routine, it's going to excel on its own, and that's great. But how likely are you to introduce a sponge ball into an organic setting if you're just doing walk around magic? You could stick with the coins, or you could use a napkin, which would give you a similar effect because you can squeeze it into the hand, you can separate it. There's a lot of things you could do with the napkin. So the sponge ball is probably going to be the prop set. It's going to be the thing that when you sit down, or sit down to do your magic show. Sponge ball is going to be a big part of that. But carrying it with you on the street, I have to admit, with Jason Marr, I have to agree with him on that, is that sponge balls is probably not a very organic thing, because it's not. I'm not really sure how you could bring it up. Now, if you look over at Bob Possible's stuff, he does a hair routine with these sponge bunnies. He keeps one in his hat. So he might be, with his personality and his routines, he might be able to introduce the sponge bunny relatively easily. But sponge balls themselves, like, the only way that I would really like, these are oranges, and so they look like a little orange. So that, to me, that might be organic, organic magic. It might be easier to introduce those into like a fruit-based routine. um, which actually would be kind of brilliant, and maybe I'll put this together for you. So doing a sponge ball routine after a card trick, lose the card, then do a production with the sponge balls, producing a real orange that actually has their card in it. Something to consider, which I think other people have done similar things, but maybe that's something I can put together for you and have that. So sponge balls is not an everyday carry for me. Coins are an everyday carry. Cards are an everyday carry. Some type of writing implement, Sharpies, would be an everyday carry. And other than that, I probably don't have a whole lot of everyday things that I would just carry with me. Because really, if you could do, like I said, you could do card tricks every day, you can do coin tricks all day, you got this, and then you'd want to carry pencil and paper, or pen and paper, whatever you want to call that. You could either do one or the other, depending on how you want your walk around set to go. But keeping in mind that these things are props that can get old quickly, and that's why if you have multiple people moving around with you and you're doing the same thing over and over again, they're going to catch on to that. So keep in mind that if you're doing a card trick that has like a setup, you don't want to have a card trick that requires a long setup, because depending on what your reset time is between sets. But if you have a setup that just requires a couple of cards at the top or the bottom, then you can easily go back and forth. Like, you're walking to the next group of people, and boom, you've already got your deck reset. You've already got whatever you're, like, for instance, this is like, if any of you guys are out there that are familiar with the Scotch and Soda, I love the premise of it. I really do. Okay, so basically, you've got your copper coin, the Mexican centavo, and then you've got your 50-cent piece. And then if you squeeze them together, you can actually turn one into a quarter and have your 50-cent piece, which is brilliant. And there's nothing wrong with that. I love it. Okay, but here's the problem. So, as I've said before with coin material, and that's why it comes with the actual full Mexican centavo. Excuse me. Finishing thought here. So you basically can't have this like in your hand or anything like that, because they'll think that you just did that. One of the best ways to do it is potentially slip it into somebody's pocket or something. or underneath somebody's cup or something like that. That way you can do a reveal with that. Because you can't really let's just do this live, right? So I just did that trick. It's absolutely, it floors, it's great. Like, how'd you do that? I've now revealed that this coin is now, I turned it into the quarter, so that doesn't really make sense to then do a reveal with it. But in reality, the way that the trick would work is that I made it smaller and changed it. But then I've got to do a reset, right? So here's what the reset looks like. Got to get this in here. Hold on. Can I get a round of applause? A round of applause. Yeah, round of applause. But you don't want to flash that came out. So that's something to keep in mind. And how do you know that it even came out? So now, that's what I like to do is, if you have a table that's a little bit lower, so when you push this together, so the dialogue, the pattern that I came up with is, okay, everybody, let's get a round of applause, a round of applause. So the table's a little bit lower and kind of back, and you're basically creating some noise, maybe even not a tin table, because then they would hear it fall. But now basically it's below their eye level, and then if you wanted to reset, it's reset. So that is the way that I would handle that, and I would create that moment where I'm tapping, like, let's get a round of applause, everybody, a round of applause. And then now you're ready. And that's kind of how I would handle that. And then if you wanted to go into doing it again with the next group, that's one thing. But you have to be really careful on how you do that. So having an extra, because I have both a 50-cent piece, but let's keep in mind that this one and this one, there's a slight difference between the two of these. Like, this one's very shiny and this one's not very shiny because it's older. So maybe I should tarnish that a little bit. And then I've got the Mexican centavo here, so I can definitely do a reveal. Instead of doing the quarter, I can just make this show up someplace else. Absolutely fantastic. A good way to do that. So yeah, so just keep in mind of what props you want to carry. If you're doing 5 minutes, then just do one. You don't have to have multiples, but make sure you're practicing other stuff, and that's a good way to go. If you're carrying, like, again, I don't need to carry both of these if I'm not doing a long set, because but I would carry both of them, because if you're switching back and forth and you do have different people, but maybe every once in a while you might have this, like, I just performed for these people, and so when I'm performing for these people, they can kind of see, and then they already know it's coming because I just did it. So then that way I'll be switching out. That way when I perform for the next group, they look and say, hey, that's a different trick than we just did here. And then by the time I get to the next group over here, these people are looking and they're like, oh, that's different than the trick he just did, because I'm switching back and forth, so that they can't really catch on to the fact that it's different, what I did the first time. But yeah, a lot of talking. We're over 40 minutes, so absolutely fantastic. So let's go ahead and talk about music very briefly. I don't do music. A drink here. I write lyrics and I sing them however it feels good. I would do more. I would, maybe we'll do an extra live where we just talk about music and maybe we write something together. But in reality, I've had somebody jump on and leave, jump on and leave, jump on and leave. But I haven't had any real engagement today, so that's unfortunate, because I know I haven't been doing lives. I've kind of been in and out with different things. Completely understandable. When you guys get a chance to watch this, if you've got anything to add, go ahead and let me know. And yeah, thank you guys. And remember, stay positive, stay active, and stay awesome. And we'll see you in the next one. And now I've got to get up and turn this off. Fun fact, I actually dropped all the cards on the floor. Just in case that was behind the scenes, all that good stuff. So have fun. Hope you guys enjoy this new year coming up here pretty soon. We'll talk with you later.